Hi and welcome. I am Nick, and today we are gonna be starting a little adventure on how to make this asset. Now, this asset I did not make myself. I mean, like I made this render and like this 3D model, and this is exactly what we're gonna be creating soon. But it all comes from this asset, which I downloaded from Artstation, which is this one from Max Marharit. Marharit. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I'm sorry, bro, if you're watching the video. And yeah, well, he has a set of beautiful props that he's made, and they're all very elegant and very nice. And it seems like Max is using the same kind of workflow that we are gonna be doing with decals. At least that's what it looks like. So, well, this is the asset in question. It's really, really pretty. I really like it. I like the little like incubator pods for the plants. I like the little lights on top, and there's a very bunch of interesting decals that we're gonna be making. And yeah, I dig it. I dig it. So we're gonna go ahead and start working on this to make it look like this. Okay, so what does this workflow basically consist of? So, when you take into consideration a regular PBR workflow for texturing or whatever, you just get an asset like I've done here. You unwrap it, you make first the high poly and then the low poly. You unwrap it, you bake it into like another software, which is normally Marmoset Toolbag or Substance Painter, and then you bring it into another software for texturing. Like in my case here, I did it with the Marmoset the baking, and then Substance Painter I did the texturing, and you're left with a set of maps, which is gonna look like this. So you have the finished one, you have the normals, and like a color and all of the other maps, like pertaining to which will tell the software, like in case like you use Unreal Engine or something else for just rendering, what to do with those maps. But there is another way. Uh, Now Star Citizen has been like using this a lot, and not this workflow, but what I have done here. What I've done here basically. So Star Citizen, what they tend to do is to make an asset like like this. Use one basically like one or more materials to just give it like the, let's say, background texture, and then just populate the asset with decals and trim sheets, right? And it's a very intelligent way of dealing with like very very large objects. Like you can also do it for small ones, obviously, like I've done here, but in many cases they also use it for like very large objects like huge spaceships or like stations or whatever it is. That it's like massive buildings and whatnot. So you end up having like areas where you don't need to have detail, like this area for example. Basically you don't have to care about textile density at that point, because well, you can just have a 500 by 500, spread it all across the object with these very small details, which can be extremely sharp because they're not baked into the texture. They're added on top, right? With parallax occlusion mapping, which, it's pretty much like this right here is a trim sheet that I made. So part of it is like panel trims. And at the bottom, you have the decals, right? Like all of the decals that I used. Like, and you also have some info decals. It will allow you to have like levels, like some areas of the object with extreme amounts of details without actually impacting the performance so much, because you're not using a 16K texture. And honestly, if the object is large enough, even 16K textures are not gonna cut it, because if you grab like an object that is like 2 kilometers wide, and it's all one texture, even if you make it in 16K, if like you're trying to add like a 5 centimeter detail on it, like well, it's like when you take it into textile density, it's gonna be very small, and therefore it's gonna look pixelated as hell. So this is a more, in my opinion, intelligent approach for large objects, which doesn't necessarily need to be specific for large objects at all. You can also apply to small ones. Now, obviously, these are some of the assets I made, which like are well, it was more like a study rather. um I was trying to like work around a little bit to figure out how it works with decal machine, because I've done it before using just vanilla blender for this project. I did not use any add-ons. I was just doing it in vanilla. This is well, kind of like my own version of the or Orison one of the Orison's MRI rooms, like this one. I just modified it a little bit, and yeah, just added like most of the things you see. I was using Denny Chan's like set of props that he made. Is absolutely beautiful concept designs for Star Citizen. They look a little bit different from the finished product. Like when you go in game and you see how they actually look in game, they look quite different. But still, it doesn't matter. Like I love the concept art that he made, and yeah, I just wanted to recreate some and see how they would look, and they turned out quite nice, I have to say. So we're not gonna use the vanilla approach. I specifically make this for people who have decal machine and want to like test it, like and use it, like to make props like this and to see how it works. Uh, Now, obviously, the reason why we want to use decal machine is that it allows for flexibility, and later I'll explain you why. And also it's like way more manageable. Like it's way easier to add decals on, to add trim sheets on, and it's very flexible. It takes a little bit of like getting used to, but once you do, your workflow is gonna be extremely fast. When I look at these things like concept arts on ArtStation to remake them, I always try to get them like to get those that are as detailed as possible and they have multiple angles. Now this one is nice because it has a frontal view. At the same time, we can see what's going on in the back. I believe, yeah, this is the back. So we have a pretty decent idea on what's going on. If you want my advice, I highly recommend you to download this little piece of software, which is called PureRef. Now, PureRef is used a lot, used and abused. Like you just grab whatever reference you wanna have there, and you slap it on, and there you go. You have it ready. I usually have it on another screen, but when I work in Blender while modeling, like for example, this is a nice frontal view. I might use this directly, as a template. So I'll be probably modeling on top of it, always accounting for perspective, because as you can see, it's not a orthographic camera. It's like looks like a perspective camera. So there's a little bit of skewing here. You can see like this, you know, it's not ortho. So we'll have to put that into account. But this is a big help for modeling. Like normally, what you would want to do from the get go is to identify what can be geometry and what can be decals, right, or trim sheets added on. For example, this piece here that is sticking out. This can easily be geometry because obviously it's sticking out uh, quite a bit. Like, and you cannot just make this into a decal. But the thing is on top of it, like so these two, this one here, this little panel here, this light thingy that you can see this, like this can be an info decal, this is another decal. This is an array of decals, another decal. This can all be decals and can be added on. Like this can be a triple, or you can make it just one. I mean, easy is to make it one and then you just like array it equidistant from each other, or you could just make like a big one, and just encapsulate like all three into this big one. There are some limitations you need to keep in mind. For example, if you decide to make these four into one single decal, you need to keep in mind that if you want to reuse it, sure, you can kind of like slap the whole decal with all four of them on top of another surface and then cut it and just use one. But uh, in my opinion, the best way is to actually just make one, and then if you need multiple, you just like array it like equidistant from each other, and you're good. So, in my opinion, it's better to make a single one and just like put a bit more work. Like, don't worry about geometry because in the end, it's gonna be like a simple plane. So it's literally four vertices in 99.9% of the cases. So you don't have to really worry about geo. It's not geometry intensive really. For the plants, of course, we're gonna model it and kind of make it. I'm not the best at making vegetation yet, so like, sorry if I suck a little bit, but I'll try my best. And yeah, all this can be decals as well. This one we can approximate like what it would look like. I'm not really sure. Like, we'll take some artistic liberty for this. This can be all parallax occlusion mapping, and like this can actually, maybe this inset right here can be a geo. Maybe also this one. We can make it geo slightly, just to push it in slightly. These can be easily decals too. This is decals as well. I mean, all this can be decals, yeah, and it can be outlined here by trim sheet. Very simple inset trim sheet, like nothing special. Same as this one, and yeah, these as well. Decals. Most of it can be decals. Like, most of the details you see, as in, like, when I finish this, like, the bare bones of the model is going to be very, very simple and minimalistic, and you can add all of the details you want later through decals. Remember that you can slap decals on top of decals. So for instance, this can easily be like one decal with maybe a slight inset, or like whatever, like some since it's two different colors. Also this one, honestly, we might actually cut out like one part of the mesh and make it another color. We'll use vertex painting for it. And we can then slap on top like some of the info decals, just to make it more interesting. Now, this is something that is very versatile, because you can use a regular PoM decal and then slap on top an info decal, and then you can reuse that info decal somewhere else without actually having to make another separate, like info decal. Also, because I believe it's not supported in the PoM workflow, you cannot just slap on top like um, some color decals, or maybe you can, but I don't know. I think it doesn't work well, because the color it derives the color from what's on the bottom. So if you just slap something on top, it would have to be like another separate mesh. It's a mess. Like, honestly, I don't know. I've never done it. I don't see the utility of going through so much trouble when you could just make an info decal and slap it on top. So it doesn't make much sense in my opinion. But this is the asset, and we're gonna work on it. Normally, I would have my pure F kind of filled with stuff like this, but well, in this case, I cannot, because it's only one asset, and I mean, sorry, it's only one picture of the asset. So yeah, this is my pure F. Very intricate, as you can see, but I always have it like on my other monitor, so that I can zoom in and take a look around. If I need a specific part, like I can just zoom in and take a look at it, like what sort of minor decals are within the decal and whatnot. What's going on, and it helps out a lot. And yeah, like, you should really do the same, especially when you're working with multiple references and you're making your own asset, which derives from, sorry, let me just when it derives from like other different assets. So definitely gonna be using pure ref. All right, now let's get down to brass tacks. I would have loved to be using Unreal Engine 5.4, but it's gonna be updating. There is no need, to be honest. I'm just gonna use 5.3.2 for what we need to do. It's all right. So to begin with, we're gonna go into games, and let's see. I'm probably gonna make a blank, I suppose. Actually, yeah, we can make it a blank one. We're gonna name it, and we're gonna call it. Oof, actually, a good question. By the way, I'm gonna keep all these tutorials mostly unedited, like unless there is like a big pause or something, just because so you can see my thought process, how I approach certain things, and how to deal, with things as well, like when things don't go as you plan. So in this case, we're gonna call the project call it plant incubator. Well, it's not gonna be a C++ project, so I can probably just keep it in Blueprint. Although, yeah, no, we're not gonna use any C++ functionality in it, so it's fine. Okay, desktop, maximum quality. Yeah, we can put in starter content and ray tracing. Project name doesn't require spaces, of course. Genius. And create it. Now you may be wondering why I'm starting from Unreal Engine. Simply because we want to make a setup for the project, right? So as I mentioned, we're gonna be using vertex colors to map out like one master material, which is gonna drive all of the colors that we're gonna be using. Now this asset doesn't really have too many colors, to be honest, because this is gonna be a decal. So it mainly has what, one, two colors pretty much. So we can just use R and G. So the red and green channel. We don't even need the blue one, I think. No, no, we really don't. It's just two colors. Man, okay. Now there is an extra material here. This could be a different material. Sorry, it's not about the colors. It's more about the materials. Yeah, that's three materials. We can just use RGB. We don't need the alpha. But we will create a master material with the alpha as well, because in case you want to go for a project where you're gonna need that alpha channel, you can use it. So let's quickly jump into Blender one moment and create an extremely basic model just to test out our materials, right? Because we want to test if they work well. Okay, so for once we're gonna be using our beautiful cube. We can just, yeah, we can literally just go into just beveling it. By the way, I'm, like I said, I'm using hard ops, box cutter, decal machine, and I'm also gonna be using a mesh machine and all that sort of stuff. So uh you gotta have those. I mean, you can also do it in vanilla, but it's not, you're not gonna follow as well. So simple one face bevel. I'm gonna apply it. You can see, right? Cool. So the idea is that this is gonna be the same process. I'm gonna use weighted normals so that it's gonna give the impression that it's actually beveled properly, even though it's literally just a two-edge bevel. It's not crazy, but it looks like it is with multiple edges. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Now what I want to do is select everything, move it on the x-axis of like, just gonna actually duplicate it, move it here, duplicate it again, and move it here, and duplicate it again and move it here because we're doing RGBA. Now, basically, the idea is that this is all one object, right? So this is the concept that we're gonna be using later. So one object, one material. So what we're gonna be doing is, by the way, I'm using a plugin here as well for vertex painting because it will allow me to also paint the alpha channel. Okay, like without this plugin, you cannot do it with the classic Blender functionality. It just won't allow you. It's called Vertex Color Master. Yeah, I may put like the link in the description. Like a friend of mine actually made it work also for Blender 4.0 because it was kind of development was discontinued. So now it works. So what we're gonna be doing is that we're gonna go into edit mode, select this whole area, and we are gonna first of all go into the alpha, and we're gonna clear the alpha first of all, and then we're gonna go into the red channel and fill. Now I somehow cannot see the vertex colors. Interesting. Normally I can. Okay. Yeah. Forgot I have to clear the others first. So now it's filled with red, right? So next, we're gonna click on this, Control L to select all of the others. By the way, I'm gonna be using screen capture for the thingies for Blender so that you can see what I'm clicking. Um, Again, go here and we want to clear the red, fill with green, clear blue, clear alpha. You have to clear alpha because everything is alpha by default. If you don't clear it, it's not gonna be working with this plugin. Blender by default will automatically just apply alpha to everything. So you could clear these, but the alpha will still be on them. So you need to clear the alpha, otherwise it will appear as alpha. Okay. Once again, we go into edit mode, select the last one, go into vertex paint, and we're gonna clear red, clear green, clear blue, and see alpha is black. If we clear it, it will also clear the alpha. But in this case, we want it, and we actually want to clear red, so we're gonna keep it there. Okay, so now into object view, into object mode, you cannot see the colors, but there is a way to make them show up. And all you have to do is pretty much just go in here and see as color is set to material. You can put object, still nothing. But if you go into attribute, well, now you're able to actually see what kind of vertex paint things have, because like otherwise you're just not gonna be able to tell, and it becomes really annoying when you're dealing with with objects that have RGBA, vertex paint, and you're just trying to figure out where the hell is what. It becomes problematic. So like this, you solve the issue. So now what we're gonna be doing is so we created our plant incubator thingy, Unreal project, and what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna be using Unreal Engine exporter. And we're gonna into object properties. We're just gonna leave it as cube. Export recursive. This is really important, or it's not gonna work. Procedure normal. No alembic. No anything. Okay, we can just leave this normal like that. Go into nomenclature, and in nomenclature, this is really important. Like, it's gonna export static mesh. And it's SM underscore. This is industry standard for it. But it's really important that you set the path. Okay, so otherwise it's gonna export it somewhere randomly, but we want it to be exported into a specific folder. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna go into the content folder, make a new one called assets. We're gonna make a new folder called static meshes, and we're gonna go in here, and here's where we want our asset to be. So we just go in here, set the path. Now I am pretty sure, hold on. Easiest way to figure out where stuff is, just go in here, show in Explorer, and it's gonna open the actual folder. Just copy the path. Easiest way you can possibly do this. There you go. Bob's your uncle. Now it's gonna save it on, it was in the Unreal Engine projects. So it might be a different folder for you depending on where you save your Unreal Engine projects. For me, it's this one. So this is all good. There is one more thing that we need to do. We have to set what we want to export, because we don't exactly, yeah, there you go. We don't really want to export all this. Like sometimes it will export logs as well, and it becomes really annoying. Because you will find your Unreal Engine folder cluttered with stuff that it's not pertinent. So you don't really want that. Set it as no filter, it's fine, because anyway, like you see what you're exporting. And that is pretty much it, really. Like once once we're done with this, we can simply go into export process. See, one asset will be exported because it's just this. Like we could delete the camera, whatever, and export for Unreal Engine 4. Now, says please save this file. Sure, let's just save it. I'm gonna call it example mat setup. Power save it, and now we can export for Unreal Engine 4. Don't worry if you see export for Unreal Engine 4. I'm using Unreal Engine 5 as you've seen, and it's gonna work just fine. Now you're gonna get a prompt window here. See, a change of source content file has been detected. Would you like to import it? Yes. Now this is really important. Generate missing collision. This is up to you. Like, depends if you're using it for a game or not. My case, I'm just gonna leave it on true. I don't really care. You can do them manually. I can show you later how it's done. You can hop into advanced, combine meshes ticket, because this is really important. If you're exporting, let's say a parent which has children, right? So like multiple objects, but you're exporting the parent, is gonna automatically, the plugin, export also the children. Now, if you don't have combined meshes, it's gonna import the objects one by one. So you're gonna have a string of static meshes when you could have just had one static mesh, which was all of the parent plus children. Now you want to have this on. Now, vertex override. So vertex color import option, you want to have it as, yeah, replace. I think it's the correct. Should be. Yeah, because override, you set it manually. You want it to replace, actually. Uh, okay, convert seam, blah, blah, blah. This is all good. And you can hit import all. Now, yeah, it imported the material as well. There's actually also a way you can just avoid importing the material also. But what's important is that we have our static mesh. So this is our static mesh. Now, I didn't even set the, like correct textile density yet. It doesn't really matter. We just want now to create the material and have it show correctly onto our object. Remember, it's going to be red, green, blue, and alpha channel. So the way we're going to do this, we can also, by the way, create a new map since we're at it. So we can make a new folder called levels. And in here, we're going to go into and create a new level. Let's just call it showroom. Selected, and it's gonna be blank. Okay, so for now this is fine. We want to go into now the assets, make a new folder, call it materials, not materias, but materials. By the way, you can directly rename the thing by hitting F2. New folder called master materials. Convention folder already exists. Location with this name. What? Interesting. Okay. So material instances. Sorry, just checking if master materials. Just checking if Unreal is messing with me. Yes, it was. Okay, and in master materials, we're gonna create a new material. And we're gonna call it mm_basic mat. Okay, now, you probably know already something about materials in Unreal Engine, so I'm gonna, you should know what is base color, metallic, specular, roughness, all of this does to a material. We're just gonna keep it to surface, opaque, and default lit. This is fine. So how we're gonna approach this? So the vertex color paint will be driving a certain, not just color, but all sorts of things, okay, into the material. Now remember, the static mesh has only one material, right, that can use. So this material will be driven by this, by an instance of this, rather. So now we want to just test, that it's gonna work. So how do we do that? Well, it's pretty straightforward. So first of all, we want to go and use a 4 vector. So like click 4 and then press with the left click. This is going to create a 4 vector. We're going to make this red for now. This we're going to make it green. We're going to make another one. We're going to make it blue. Cool. Then we're going to make a black one. We're just going to leave it black for the alpha channel. Now, the way we're going to be doing this is that we're going to grab also vertex color data. There you go. And we want to pass it through a bunch of lerps. Now, we do not want this one. We want to start with the RGB and then the alpha at the bottom. Okay. So to summon a lerp node, you can just go look for it. Lerp, so it's linear interpolate, or just click L and then press the left mouse button. Now, basically, grab the red and we put it into both the no, sorry, apologies. We're gonna put into the alpha, and we are gonna put the red, right, the thingy, the collective one, so not the R, not the G, not the B, and we want to put it into both the A and B output. Okay. And this one, we put it into the A of the lerp. It's gonna be driving the green channel, the green in. We bring up another lerp. We put the result into the A. We put the blue into the B, and the blue vertex color into the alpha. And last but not least, our alpha channel, put this into the A, put the result of the alpha into the B, and the alpha vertex color into the lerp. Now, if we connect this to the base color, we apply. You're not going to see the result here, but if we go to our cube and we apply our material, ta-da! There you go. Now you have the vertex colors applied correctly. As you remember, we put them like this. Now, you want it, like if you want, you can actually, go in here and test. If it's all working, just change the color of this one. Hit OK. You apply. There you go. Now the red has turned into this bluish color. Change the green as well into something like white. There you go. Now the green channel is white. Now this is very basic. We're gonna go and also flesh it out so that it's gonna work more the way we want. But for now, like we know that the vertex colors work as intended. Now, one thing I'm gonna want to do, this is more for myself, but if you're wondering later what I'm using, I'm gonna be using electronic nodes and uh, Jesus, don't remember the name of the other one. One is electronic nodes and the other plugin, I never remember what it's called. One is electronic nodes and darker nodes. There you go. So I use these two plugins, which are absolutely beautiful. You will see what I mean in a sec. Let me just save and restart the engine. Engine's restarted. And now if I go open my material, aha, there you go. Now it looks like, you see, like a motherboard, like a PCB or something, right? I really like it because it keeps things way more like visually pleasing and more organized, so to speak. Like, see, like it moves the spaghetti. Anyway, we're gonna be tidying this up because we're gonna start to add like way more things. So like slowly but steadily, we'll be tidying this material up the more things we add. Right, so now we can begin to add some variation. Now, for the sake of just getting started, I'm gonna be using one of the Unreal Engine's inbuilt textures, but you're gonna want to be using some custom ones. Yeah, so this pack is actually pretty amazing. Like, I'm gonna put a link into the description, but there's a whole bunch of these, right? So they vary from cracks to craters to like whole bunch of 512 by 512 textures, which is really good because they're kind of light. Mostly we're gonna be using noise ones, like for example super noise or Perlin noise, stuff like this. Vein not so much, but maybe some Voronoi that we're gonna use. We'll see a little bit what's needed, but there is a whole bunch of them, so like you download them, you can use them at any point in time. But for now, we're gonna be started with this. So the concept is we have a main color, right? Which, Jesus, let me go actually into the asset so that we see it. Static meshes, and open it. Okay, cool. So we have a bunch of textures, right? So what we want to be doing is that whenever you are doing a texture, especially when it's procedural, you really want to have variation, right? Like it doesn't matter how small and how imperceptible it is, the human eye can tell. Like, and it's gonna make a massive difference. For example, maybe you don't see it in a certain light, but when you move and you go against a light source, yeah, then it's gonna be noticeable if there is nothing there. And now there is nothing there. It's extremely flat, and you can see it by going into optimization views and just changing it. Now, the asset is not in any scene, so what we want to do, actually, first of all, I'm gonna go into the project settings, go into maps and modes, and select our showroom map as the starter map, so that it's always starting from there. We don't have to open it every time. So we want to go into levels, open the showroom, save selected because I just imported all those textures. It's gonna take a second. Great. And then what we want to do here is go into the tools. I believe it is. Go into the environment light mixer. I'm not sure if it's in. I know. Yeah, I was in window environment light mixer. So just gonna create a simple skylight, atmosphere light, sky atmosphere, volumetric, and night fog. Okay, cool. It's a super basic setup, but you know, can get us started. Now, we're gonna import a cube. Just to make it like 100 by 100 by 1. It's fine. Bring it to 0 location, and that's it. So now this is gonna be our starting point. We can then import our static mesh. Cool. Now see, when I import the static mesh, the origin point is set to the middle, so it's gonna be like spawning in the middle, which is not great. But when we make the asset, we're gonna fix it later. I'll show you how. And now, see, we have our prop, and we want to check from the optimization views. Sorry, buffer visualization. So basic color, see, it's completely flat. It's just 4 perfect colors with no variation whatsoever. Metallic is this exactly the same. Well, this is so black. There is literally nothing metallic. Opacity, same. Roughness, same. It's like, see, all one big block. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So we go back to lit, and now we want to introduce variation. One thing I want to do first, though, is we go directly into the asset. Do not do this into the into a static mesh that you imported into the world. You want to do it into the actual asset page. We're not going to use the master material anymore. We can already create a material instance because it will update much faster once we start messing with it. And besides, this is the way to do it. So we create a material instance. We call it mi base mat 1. Mat 1. Cool. We can apply it already, and we move it into the material instances by just drag and dropping. Cool. Now it has the instance on it. Now, how do we create variation? So we're going to create another 4 vector. Let's leave it black for now. We make it something that is extremely visible. We want to create another lerp. Or, like I said, L and click. We want to connect this to the B. And then connect this into the A right here. Now, how are we going to be driving the... oh, and also, yeah, we want to connect it into the B because this is R. So how are we going to be driving this? We're going to need an alpha, right? We have these two. They're going to have to be driven by an alpha, right? So what are we going to be using? We're going to be using a texture, right? We're going to use a texture sample parameter 2D. And we're going to put this into the alpha. Now, how is this gonna be working? Basically, whatever texture we put in here is gonna be the separator between the two colors, right? So the white is gonna take into consideration the A, I'm pretty sure. So this purplish blue here. Sorry, I'm colorblind if I don't get this right. I think it's like a purplish blue thingy. And the B, which is the black. So what we want to do though, since we're using a material instance, we want to actually parameterize this and these as well. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna convert this to a parameter, and we're gonna call it M1 color. Yeah, M1 color, and we're gonna be calling this M1 color variation. But we're gonna call it color variation tint. This is just the tint. Now this we're gonna parameterize as well, right? Jesus, what parameterize is already a param. So we're gonna call this M1 variation color variation alpha texture. Cool. Now, what we also want to do is grab texture coordinates because we'll need them. Grab a texture coordinate node, super raw for now, just shove it in there, and this is gonna work. So if we apply now, oh, compilation errors. Well, compilation errors. Let me analyze this one sec. Yeah, when I did this the first time, I think I was just testing them one by one, so it's not gonna work like this. So what we're gonna do is that for now, we're just gonna cut these out and just basically have one color for the whole asset, and later on we're gonna, like do this correctly with the others too. So we're gonna apply now, go back in showroom and look. Now we can see there is a variation, right? But we don't want this. What we want to do is we're gonna open the material instance and see now we have our parameters, right? So we have the variation tint and we have the color as well. So what we want to do is we want to open this, and if we put this white texture and save it, see, it's all going to be blue. Sorry, Jesus, black. And if we put the black texture, it's going to look like the main color that we set. So now we are aware that the alpha is going to be driving either this or this. So what we're going to do next is we're going to use this macro variation texture that Unreal kindly provides us. It's called T underscore macro variation. So as you can see now, it looks like this, right? So as you, like the black areas of this texture, let's take a look at it, right? The black areas are gonna be marked as the blue texture, I believe, if I remember correctly, and the white areas are marked as the black texture. So, knowing this, we can now start working with our master material. What does this mean? Now, this is a fixed texture, right? We cannot scale it, we cannot do anything with it. We're gonna have to be doing some little bit of material magic to make this work a little bit better. So one of the first things that we can start doing is by messing about with this. The easiest thing you can possibly do is to actually start scaling it. You just grab a multiply node, or simply hit M. Simply grab a multiply node, put it in here, and we're gonna hit 1 and click. So this is gonna create a variable. We're gonna convert it to a parameter, and we're gonna call this color variation. Actually, no. Sorry, it needs to be way more descriptive than this because we're gonna be making multiple. So we're gonna call it M1 micro variation alpha tiling alpha tile. Now, since this is parameterized, if we now apply, go into our showroom. Well, now it looks like this. Um, but if we go into our material instance and we click this, let's just take it out so we can see actually how it looks in the showroom. And we start doing this, like increasing the value. Increasing the value is gonna obviously increase the UV coordinates and tile them up. So we're gonna end up with something like this in the end, right? So with this, you can pretty much make the texture smaller and smaller. And if it's a tileable texture like this one, it's gonna look seamless until obviously you just start tiling it way too many times, and then well, now you can obviously see that there is specific patterns that are like reoccurring. Now there's a way to work around that as well, but we're gonna keep these materials pretty basic, so we're not gonna need to go that deep into this, but this works for us. Now, another important thing you might want to be doing is rotating the texture, right? So maybe you don't want it like this. Maybe you want to slightly rotate it, angle it in a slightly different way. Well, we can do that as well. Just go into the material. And what we're going to need is we can grab the texture coordinates, move them away a little bit, and we can call him a custom rotator. Right, so this custom rotator, as you can see, takes in the UVs. So we're gonna hit 1 and click twice. We're gonna parameterize this and call it U, and convert this also into a parameter, call it V. Now, we're gonna need an append node and a multiply node. So basically, this is gonna go into the multiply, and these two will come together into the append node and go onto the B value of the multiply. So how it's gonna work. I think it's append vector, U and V in there, put that into the multiply, and we're gonna put this into the this into the UVs. Now this is gonna go straight into the multiply, like that. And for the rotation center, we basically want to set it to be, well, the actual center of our texture, which is going to be basically a value of 0.5 and 0.5. The way we do that is we hit 2, click, and just put it here, 0.5 and 0.5. And we grab this value, which is the sum, and just put it into the rotation center. Now, we're gonna need also another value for the rotation. So still like a 1 vector. Convert it to a parameter and simply call this rotation. Now, if we hit apply, go back into the showroom, open our material instance, and start messing about with the rotation. I cannot see the material. Yeah, these have to, by the way, yeah, it's because obviously the UMV were 0, so we're gonna have to set a basic value of 1 actually. So we hard code 1 in here, not 10 but 1. So the default value is gonna be 1, and there you go. Like now it's gonna work. Obviously, if you increase this, it's gonna spaghettify the thing. And the more you increase it, obviously the more the texture is gonna start tiling. But we don't want that because we have this this micro variation thingy. Now, keep in mind that this UV, like if you start increasing the amount, is gonna obviously like start tiling the texture further, but it's not gonna only tile the micro variation, because this is gonna be the main driver, this right here, for the rest. So what's gonna be happening is that everything else that is gonna be connected to this. I mean, we're literally gonna. Oh, sorry, actually no. This. We're gonna literally be connecting this to a ton of other things. Whatever we connect with when you change the UVs, this is gonna affect whatever else. So we're gonna connect this also to the others, the other vertex inputs, vertex color inputs. And if you change it, obviously it's gonna scale everything. While this, the M1 micro variation tiling thing, is gonna scale just the alpha that is driving the micro variation. Later, I'm gonna show you a little bit better what that means. But for now, let's just leave this at 1 and leave these two at 1 as well. And to be honest, we could just turn them off because the default value is 1 anyway, so nothing's gonna change. But as you can see, when I use the rotation, now the texture is correctly rotating. Actually, funny enough, you can see it better on this cube. When we start rotating, see, it's gonna rotate like the texture on all the faces. Now, there are other ways of making rotators, like you can make it like so that it doesn't work with the UVs, but it works with the, let's say the position of the object and whatnot. We want to keep it simple because it's a pretty simple matte, so we're just gonna keep on using just the UVs for this kind of rotation, and we're gonna leave it at 0 for now. Actually, you know what, we can just turn it off altogether. Now, for the sake of organizing, because this is gonna get messy real fast when we start working with not just the color, but we start working with metallic, with roughness, and with normal as well. So each material section, like so, each R, G, or B is gonna have a whole host of these kind of this kind of logic in there. So it's gonna get cluttered like real fast. So what we want to do is that we pretty much want to abuse grouping things together. The way it works is that you grab a bunch of nodes that you want to group together, like this. And sure, you could hit G. No, sorry. I don't even remember the shortcut. I never used that anyway. But you can grab everything and hit collapse nodes. Now everything is collapsed into this. Okay. Now it doesn't have a very understandable name, to be honest. Yeah, sure, there is rotated values. We can leave it at that, but this we can change it into rotation logic. Cool. And rotated values can serve us just fine. It's okay. It's just one pin. It's all good. And when we get into it, if we double click it, see, we have all our logic inside, and it all culminates into this output, which is the rotated values, and that is going into the multiply. Now for this, what we're gonna do, we're gonna do something very similar, but we're gonna be modifying it later, the inside of this group. But we can start by grouping these up, right? Same story, collapse nodes. And this, as you can see, it creates 3 different outputs, yeah? Now, this is not descriptive at all, and it can cause like a whole lot of misunderstandings. So you have to be very specific with these. So for example, this is M1 color. Oh, okay, never mind. M1 color. My keyboard not working today. M1 color logic. Cool. Now the outputs are not descriptive either. So it has one input pin, and this is also non-descriptive, and we need it to be descriptive, so we can call it rotation input. And we know what it is. And it has 3 output pins. So what are these 3 output pins? So the first one is the main color, right? So we can simply call this, let's say M1 base color. The second one is the variation tint. So we can call this M1 color variation tint. Perfect. And the third one is pretty much the alpha. Straight and simple. We will modify it a bit, but let's just call this alpha. More like M1 alpha. Actually, M1 color alpha. Cool. Now, if we go back, as you can see, now they're way more descriptive, and we can figure out easily what it is that they're doing. Now, before we keep going with the other materials, I want to make sure that uh, I get down really well this material right here, and then we can start modifying everything else. So I'm gonna keep them for now here. I'm just gonna move them slightly, but for now we're just gonna be working on the color logic. And then we're gonna move on to the other ones. We need to keep in mind that a material can only get up to 16 texture samplers. So if you mess around too much with it, this is gonna start giving you errors because the material is too heavy. So we're gonna keep it underneath 16. It's doable, but it's a lot of logic that goes into these kind of materials. So we're gonna try to keep it simple. So next up, what we want to do. Great, we have our variation alpha, but we might also want to create some contrast because maybe you want to increase or decrease the contrast, or even maybe turn the variation on and off. So how are we going to be doing this? First of all, we're going to need the cheap contrast node. We're going to put the output of our alpha texture in here. Obviously, no, this not yet actually. And we want to create one vector variable, convert it to a parameter. Yeah, and when we do this, the variable tends to go someplace else. So we want to cut it and paste it and then connect it. Don't ask me why. Like, I haven't figured this out yet, but it is what it is. We rename it and we can call it M1 color alpha contrast. Literally disabled today. So next thing we want to do is we want to create a lerp node. And how are we going to do this? So the result of the color is going to go into the A, and the result of the cheap contrast is going to go into the B. And then, yes, that's correct. And then we're going to put this into the alpha. Perfect, to the alpha result. And the alpha is going to be driven by, well, guess what? Another variable, but this time I'm going to copy paste because otherwise it's going to do that again. So we're going to call this M1 color variation alpha, but not this time, not contrast. We're going to call it on or off. So by default, it's a 0 value. So let's just set them to a correct value to start with. So the alpha tile, I'm going to leave it at default value of 1. And this as well. That's it. We'll leave them all at 1. So now if you look at it, actually this might be 0. It's better. No? No, because we're actually going to need it. Never mind. It has to be 1, but the contrast is better at 0 because, yeah. Yes, it's way more visible. Now, if we increase it, you will see that, yeah, okay, this does not update in real time. Let's just apply it, go into the showroom, and I'll show you what I mean. So, actually, don't even need to go into the showroom. I can just show it here. So, alpha on or off, if you put it on 0, by the way, we might actually clamp this. There you go. Like on 0 is off, 1 is on. But this, the contrast, see, when you increase it, it's obviously going to increase the contrast of the texture. Therefore, well, the more, like you go up, the more contrast, the lower you go, the less contrast. Now, we're really kind of interested in something like this, right? Like, we want to keep things mostly subtle. Like, sometimes you might want to, bump things up. But, normally, like, we're going to be working with subtle materials. Like, they're not so punchy in the face. We're going to keep it that way. So for now, contrast of 1, actually no, what was it? 0. My bad. The default is going to be 0, and that's perfectly fine. Yeah. Okay, let's go back here. Great. Perfect. Now, the color part is pretty much concluded. We have like good, like a good amount of logic that is going to help us out, like in our endeavors. And we can just leave it at that for now. We can begin to flesh out a little bit more the other materials and start yeah, start to actually make show that they are indeed different. So what we're gonna be doing is that we're gonna copy paste this, but keep in mind that when you do this, you're gonna have to do a little bit of modifications here. So first of all, this is not gonna be called M1 color logic anymore. It's gonna be M2 color logic. Then this is not gonna be M1 base color anymore. It's gonna be M2 base color, M2 color variation tint, and M2 color alpha. Now, when we get into this, we have a problem. The problem is this is called M1 color, and it's pretty much, well, without the pretty much, is the same exact variable as this. We cannot have this because if I change this into red and I go into the M2, look, now also in the M2 color logic, this is also red. We need to actively change the color of the variable. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So now if I change, see now it's called M2, I can change this into, actually, let's give them the correct colors. So this should be green. And this should be red. And it is red. See? It did not change. And we need to do the same for all of them. So this is not M1 color variation tint. This is M2 color variation tint. This is why you need to be specific when you're making these, because otherwise it becomes a mess. So this is not going to be M1 micro variation alpha tile. It's going to be M2 micro variation alpha tile. This is not going to be M1 color variation. We're gonna have to basically rename them all. Do not skip them and make sure you rename them correctly, because otherwise you're gonna have a really bad time, because you're gonna change one variable and it's gonna mess everything up on the other side and you're not sure why that's happening. This is why it's happening, because you probably forgot to rename one of the variables. And this includes textures as well. Like, like this is a texture param 2D. If you do not rename this, you're gonna also have a bad time. Now everything is renamed correctly. We're gonna create another lerp, and we're just simply gonna connect them here. Now I'm gonna bring these two a little bit close and space them slightly. Yeah. Now I'm gonna do exactly the same thing for the third material. I've done this all in a bulk before. Never mind. I'm not, as you can see, I'm not connecting these yet because I would have to make lerps. I will show you why after. So we get to renaming. This is a long process, so I'm just gonna skip through it, and you're gonna have to do the same. Good. So we're done, at least with this extremely repetitive part. Another thing that we might want to start to be doing is give variables a group, or mostly like a category. So we're gonna divide them into material 1 properties, material 2 properties, 3 and 4, and so on. Another way that you can do it is grouping them by what they do. So you can group them by alpha tile properties, color properties, etc., etc. I feel like, at least this is subjective, but it's more intuitive to actually group them by material and not by what the logic actually does. Because if you're just working on one material and you need to jump up and down the page, and believe me, it is gonna be full of variables, it becomes extremely annoying. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make it M1 properties, and we're gonna also grab this one, give it M1 properties, grab this one M1 properties, and so on and so forth. And you're gonna want to do this for all of the ones that you just created. I'm gonna do the same, but this time for M2. So I'm gonna click on this one and call this M2 properties. And I'm gonna proceed and give it to also all the others. Now, again, this is a very repetitive process, so you're gonna want to do this as well. But I will cut through and be done with this. Good. All done. Now, if we apply and save this, and you jump into, well, they're gonna do nothing, but if we jump into it, well, they're not connected, so you won't see the others, but the ones that are connected, you can see them. See, M1 color, alpha contrast, blah blah blah, they all fall under the M1 properties. Now when we start adding the other ones, you will see M2 properties, M3 and M4. This is gonna get really cluttered, so it's good to keep them organized like this, because you can just collapse like these, and you don't see them. And if you need a specific set of properties, you just like pop them up like that. Now going back to the material, so after we are done with this, what we're gonna want to do is grab our vertex colors and start working some magic. So we can start by deleting these because we're not gonna need them anymore. Then we're gonna bring these up. Just gonna disconnect the color real quick. And the result of the linear interpolate is gonna go in here. So this is the R, remember, M1. This is the G. This is the B. And this is the alpha. Now, once again, this is gonna start to get super cluttered super fast. So we do not wanna have this mess, but we wanna grab everything once again and collapse nodes. Look at that. We have a simple, clean node. Now we want to rename this, of course. We're gonna call it vertex colors for obvious reason. Not vertex colora, vertex colors. Now the A is gonna be red, vertex color input. Then it's gonna be G, green. Oh, wait, what? Oh, there's an extra one. Oh, I messed up. Just gonna delete this pin because it's pointless, and just do this instead. Perfect, much cleaner. So yeah, it was a mistake on my part. Forgot to do that. So green, blue is okay that I'm tired, but and alpha. Fantastic. So now we have these little descriptive pins, which will help us out a lot. Now, all we need to do is, oh no, we don't have an output node. That's too bad. We can easily make one. Like Jesus, like this. There you go. We're not gonna call it pin 1, obviously. We're gonna call it color output. Perfect. Now we have our color output. And guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna grab it and put it into base color. And we are pretty much done with color. Now, if we apply, save, and go back to the showroom, well, look, now they're different colors. Now, what we can do is we can go into M1, start opening up these properties, and start messing around with them. I'll show you how it works. So, let's say we want the second material to be green, perfect, because it is G after all. Third material to be blue. And the last material, let's make it white, because making it black, it's a bit like, you're gonna see the cube white because it always takes into consideration the alpha. So we're just gonna save, and ta-da, we're done. Look at that. Perfect. Now they're all behaving as expected. All of them have their own color, and we can start, like messing around. For example, I'm gonna put this also micro. Sorry, what's the underscore macro variation? Yeah, macro variation. What we can also do is literally just drag and drop it into the others. save some time. Or not. Or not. Perfect. And as you can see they're divided by categories. So see, this is M3 properties, M4 properties, like they're all nicely and neatly stacked so that we don't have to go crazy looking for stuff. We need M1 properties, they are all the M1 properties. We need M2 properties, here are all the M2 properties, okay? And they're all categorized as with the specific identifiers for example, color alpha, contrast, so we know exactly what they are, okay? Now this is called micro variation alpha tile. Um, we should call it color micro variation alpha tile, because if we want to do the same for, let's say, roughness, it's gonna create problems. So we can fix it right away. I'm gonna do it in a second, but we're gonna have to take this into account. So now the best way you can do when you're messing around with this sort of stuff, beautiful. Now we can see the variations. Actually, you know what? Since I have these other textures, actually, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go into my textures folder, open the 5x12, and I'm just gonna grab turbulence, and for the green, we're gonna apply this one, and for this one, we're gonna apply this one, and for this one, we're gonna apply this one. Okay, so we have 3 different textures, and we can start messing around with them. So the on and off, it's on. The alpha tiling, we're going to increase it, and you see it increases only for the green. And if we increase this one, it increases only for the blue. And if we increase this one, it will increase only for the white. Now it's not super visible, because the tint has low alpha. This is interesting. I'm going to try increasing the contrast. It's just the texture that is really dark, so I'll change it. Keep the contrast low, so I'm actually on 0. Perfect. And there you go. Done. So now we see that it works. Now the vertex colors are driving, like each material in a different way. And it's perfect because then we can just use one material to drive one prop. We don't need to make multiple materials, right? So we decrease also material and texture draw calls. And that's fantastic. Now we're gonna save and save, and for now we're done. Right, another important thing that we want to do to keep things nice and neatly organized is creating comments. So for example, this is all pertinent to the colors. So we're gonna select everything and hit C, and we're gonna call this color nodes. Great. Now I'm gonna give this a little bit of a different color. I want something nice and vibrant, so I'm gonna give it a nice light green. Now you might see it differently if you don't have the darker nodes thingy, but with the darker nodes it always looks a bit darker. It's the only thing I kind of don't like about it, but these 2 plugins are honestly insanely good, so I don't mind. This is it's a little thing I can easily not care about, but it is a thing. So we have these. For the metallic, now I don't want to have objects that, for example, have metallic variation, simply because I either want an object to be metal or non-metal. I'm not gonna make scratch bars that are non-metallic, so I'm gonna keep this nice and simple. Also, because remember, we need to keep in mind the texture sampler. So for the case of metallic, what I'm gonna do, simply, I'm gonna hit 1, left click, and yeah, do it a whole bunch of other times. So I'm gonna parameterize this and call it metal or not. Actually, let's call it M1, metal or non or not. And this one, we're gonna parameterize this as well and call it M2, metal or not. This we're gonna convert it to a parameter as well and call it M3, metal or not. And this we're gonna convert it to a parameter and call it M4, metal or not. This is extremely simple, so nothing too complicated. I can actually delete this one. And we can also, by the way, align them just like this. Distribute them vertically and align at center. Perfect. So now they're all nicely stacked. Now, what we can simply do, because remember, if we just plug this into the metal, it's obviously going to work only for one mat. So we want to copy paste this group of nodes. And this is also why it's great to do this, because we don't have to copy paste all of these nodes. We just literally just grab this big node and we're good. We just connect them, RGB and alpha, connect them to metallic. Don't forget, you need to give these the group, the correct group, which they belong to. So this is an M1 properties, it's going to be M2 properties, and this is going to be M3 properties, and this is going to be M4 properties. And we can wrap it all up by giving it a nice comment called metallic nodes. And we're going to give, we can actually leave it the gray. It's fine, because metallic, right? If you want to be OCD like I am, then do this. And just be aligned this as well. Okay, I'm going to stop being OCD. Right, so we're done with the metallic part. Now, if you want to test it, just apply. Go back to showroom. Pull up the material. Nope, never mind. Where is it? Right, yeah. Material instance. Make it bigger. I usually use another screen for this, but if I do that, you won't see it. So there you go. M1 metallic or not. For now, it's set to 0, so it's non-metallic. But if I bump this up, well, now it has become metallic, as you can clearly see. Could make it a bit easier for you to see by simply removing the texture. By the way, important thing. Let's say you want to remove a texture, right? Anyway, we established that this looks like metal, okay? This is metallic. Now, let's say you want to remove a texture, right? Like what you would want to do is, oh yeah, okay, I'm just going to crank this up to max and there you go, it's gone. No, you really don't want to do this. What you want to do instead is change the default texture for this, because otherwise every time you're going to have to go in here and select a white texture or something. Best thing you can do yourself a favor, just go in here, click on this, and the default texture, set it to there should be a, yeah, this is a 32 by 32. Let's see if I can find a white placeholder. There's like a 1 by 1 texture or something, because for the black one there is 512, 512. There you go. T underscore white sRGB. This is what 1 by 1. Also this with linear. So yeah, these are actually perfect. So I'm gonna grab the sRGB 1 by 1. This is fantastic. So it's white, and if I go back and I click this, now it's black. What? Yeah, of course, because the variation tint, yeah, no, it has to be black. My bad, because if it's white, it takes into the account the variation. So we're gonna need there you go, T underscore black sRGB, and it's a 1 by 1. Save it. Perfect. And now it's gonna be white. Of course, there is the metallic. Where is it? Metallic. Put it on 0, and now it's white. Perfect. So this is how you simply get rid of this. So obviously we did it just for the M1. We need to do it also for the others. So whenever you have a texture, don't leave it as default. Make sure you always do this process, because like when you wanna, like we'll see later with decals, this is extremely important. Because I will show you also how to do it for product shots. I mean, sorry, not product shots, but like showroom shots where you want to showcase that the model has the decals and not. Now you don't need to do anything other than hide them. But the question is, how do you hide them? By simply unclicking the materials. Don't change the texture into the material instance. Just change it into the master material to something neutral that doesn't show up, so that the alpha doesn't bother you. And this is exactly how you would do it. But later, I'll I'll show you how I deal with it when it comes to decals because it's a little bit more complicated than this. Right, we're done. So now with the other materials, if I unselect them, see, they're gonna it's just gonna kill the the alpha. Now let's see if I increase the metallic, say one, perfect. Now they're becoming metallic. Another thing that you might want to do is give it a slider, right? So min and max. So for example, the color alpha on or off, you might want to make this slider min and slider max. So min 0, max 1. The contrast, no. The alpha tile, neither. But definitely you want to make it for the on or off one. So I'm going to go into the M2 and also make a slider min, slider max. M3, same story. M4, same story. I'm going to apply and save. And we'll do the same for the metallic. So the metallic, we wanted also minimum of 0, maximum of 1. Great. So now if we apply and save and go back to the showroom, open the instance, great. Now, as you can see, we have a slider that goes from 0 to 1. This is the color alpha. For this is the metal, and 0 to 1 again. There you go. Now we don't have to go exactly here and input 1. We can just slide the bloody thing and we're good. Perfect. Cool, now for the roughness, we're gonna do something very similar that we did for the color, but with some differences, because roughness doesn't need to be as intricate as this, because here we have a 4 vector, which drives colors, and for roughness, we don't need that. We just need a 1 vector, so a value from 0 to 1, and that's it. Now, you don't get me wrong, you can also do this here by selecting white or black, but this is definitely way heavier than having a 1 vector because this is a 4 vector, so you do not want to do this. Like, this is going to be way more expensive. So what we're going to do, we're going to grab these nodes, copy paste, perfect. Just put them here and reconnect these because these connections were right. We can straight up connect this into the roughness. Now, how do we do this? So, first things first, we need 2 variables. Convert them to parameters and rename them. So the first one, we're going to call it M1 glossy or opaque. And the second one, we're going to call it M1 roughness micro variation. Perfect. Now, these two, we can straight up connect them into the A and the B input because this is gonna just define if the material is gonna be opaque or if it's gonna be glossy. And that sets the base for it. But this is gonna tell us what the variation is gonna be. So for example, maybe you want a fully opaque material, but, so let's say a 0.7, but you want the variation to be glossy, like it's wet or something. So you can just reduce it to 0 and it's gonna look really glossy in the areas driven by the texture. Driven by the texture, it means we need to do something very, very similar to what we did before with the color texture. So what we're gonna do, you guessed it, we're gonna need a param to the texture sample. We're gonna call this M1 roughness variation alpha texture. Perfect. Once again, we can set this to this one. We might actually want to set it to a gray value. There is actually one thing, 127 gray. There you go. It's like a gray value. This is fine because it's gonna give us like a 0.5 roughness, and it works fine for our needs. Then again, we want to bring this into a cheap contrast because we want to be able to change the contrast, connect a variable into it and convert it to a parameter. M1 roughness alpha contrast. Then we want to set it if we can, if we want to have it on or off, right? So what we want to do here is create a lerp, leave the A on 0, and connect this into the B. And the alpha is going to be driven by, you guessed it, another variable, which we will convert to a parameter and call M1 roughness variation alpha on or off. And we're almost done. Now what we need is that we need an alpha tiling as well for our texture. So from back here, we're just going to call in a multiply node, connect it straight in here, make another parameter, connect it and convert it, and call it M1 roughness micro variation alpha tile. Perfect. And where does this input go? Here, into the rotation logic. So the rotation logic will be driving this, which, we increase the alpha tile from here. And then there is the texture, which goes through the cheap contrast, and we tell it how much contrast we want. By the way, do not forget to give it a default material, also to this. And we can leave this off for now by default. And this, you guessed it, will go into the alpha. I think that's pretty much it. All we need to do is to give these material properties, group, so M1 properties. So just, I'm not sure if it's possible to do. Yeah, we can actually select all of them and just click M1 properties. And now if we go check, right, they're all M1 properties. So we don't need to do them one by one anymore. Some stuff you want to have it slider. So for example, this, we can give it a slider min and max. That's fine. Contrast, no, neither this. Micro variation. Yes, this also we want a slider because should not go over 1 and should not go below 0 because we're working with black and white, so no need. And now, once again, to make things tidier. Now imagine if all these, like we had to do this like for every single one of them, left the nodes like this, it would be an absolute mess. So now we can just group everything up and collapse it into a node. There you go. Nice and neat. And obviously, perfect. And obviously, we can give it some proper nomenclature. Oh my god, I cannot even speak anymore. I'm so tired. So we can call this M1 roughness. I swear I cannot even. M1 roughness. Now the input pin obviously is going to be our rotation input. And the outputs, we're going to call them M1 base rough. This is going to be our micro variation. And this is going to be the alpha. Now I need to actually double check, but I think this is correct. Yes. Okay, great. Right. And we are done with M1. Now we gotta do the same, obviously, for M2, M3, and you guessed it, M4 as well. Now I'm gonna skip through this because it's a lengthy process and I don't want to bore you with it, so I'm gonna skip through. Okay, and we're all done. So now the roughness is properly set for all of the materials. Now all we need to do is to just test it. And also, by the way, create a comment. Remember, make sure that you put all of the variables in their correct category. Otherwise, you're going to have trouble. I mean, it's not too much of a big deal. You can always fix it, but it looks really messy until you fix it. And you know, if you're in the middle of working on the materials, you're gonna get a massive headache from it. So there's gonna be roughness nodes. I like to give it a bit of a headway. This is too close. And let's make this red. Yeah, that works. Okay, cool. It's connected to the roughness. Now what we need to do is to apply, save, go to the showroom, and oh, we can already see a difference. See, like all of the materials now are like 0.5 rough, pretty much. So let's pull up our, there you go, base material. Let's go into M1, which is this white one right here. And I do not see the roughness. Oh yeah, there. Glossy or opaque. Perfect. This is the color variation alpha texture. Okay, we can just leave it like that. No, it's M2 properties. Where are my M1 roughness properties? Sorry, sir. You what? Okay, here there is an issue. I do not see my M1 properties, so either I changed them and renamed them to M2 or something, or I did not connect something. Let's have a look at what happened here. So my M1 properties, they're in red and they're all connected. So what is happening? Ha! See, they're marked as M4 properties because I believe that for M4 I changed it before. Yeah, I must have changed it before and I didn't rename them yet. So this is another thing you gotta keep in mind. If they have the same name and you change the, you know, where they belong in the hierarchy here, it's gonna give it issues like that. So now there you go, there they are. Keep that in mind. Right, so now glossy or opaque. Now it's 0, so it's perfectly glossy. Now I need to really get against the light for you to see it, but see now it's reflecting way more. Now you won't really be able to see it because there is not much to reflect, to be honest, but you can see a little bit. There you go. Actually, you know what? With the metal, you will see it best. So let's go to M4. It's like this chrome material, right? Glossy or opaque, and see if I put it. It shouldn't go to 2. I'll fix it later. But yeah, there you go. Now if I bring it to 0, it's gonna become chrome, right? And it reflects perfectly everything around it. But if I bring it to 1, well, now it's perfectly opaque metal. But see? So we know that it works. But now, on to more interesting things. We want roughness micro variation, alpha, perfect. Okay, I'm gonna put all of those on, and I'm gonna look for a texture that is not too invasive. So I'm gonna go for Perlin. Let's make it, yeah, this one, and I'm gonna bring the alpha tile. Wait, okay, this is the alpha on or off. I'm gonna increase the alpha tiling, but the micro variation has to be more rough. There you go. Now I can start seeing it. The other way would be to actually have the other material on 1 and the micro variation on 0. But let's increase the alpha tiling. No, see, that's why I need to change it, because this, I don't know what it is. It's the color, but doesn't tell me anything like this, so I need to fix it. But around micro alpha tile. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so I can increase or decrease the alpha tiling, and that is just for the roughness, right? So if I stick another color in here in the variation tint, I make it like blue. Say for color variation alpha texture, and I give it like a brick texture. Is that even gonna work? Micro variation alpha tile. Still cannot see it for some reason. When you're trying to work on a material and you don't see any difference whatsoever, and you know you're working on the color, the best way is not to just eyeball it like this, but just go in here, go into buffer visualization, and just hit base color. Right. So I don't see any difference whatsoever. Uh, there's the base color is white, and the variation is blue. I should see it. Maybe increase the alpha contrast. Uh huh. Interesting. It's working the other way around. Hmm. Well, I'm gonna get another texture. So let's grab a another purlin. Okay. Yeah, that was the texture. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna increase it to something like this, and macro variation alpha tile. Okay, this is just for the color. Remember, we're only looking at color in this channel here. See? So now if I go back to lit, there you go. Now the color is different, right? But the roughness hasn't changed. See? Roughness is still the same. So if I go here and I increase it, see? Now we can see that this has a different roughness. And if we put it against the light, we can see it even better. See? There are like really opaque spots. Now, a way to see this better would be actually to make the material itself opaque, like this, and make the uh, micro variation glossy. Let's make it 0. So now the variation is it's actually glossy, so we can see it against the light, right? Compared to the other materials, but the color is also different. Now, question: what if I want the color to be the exact texture as this? Well, you're gonna have to modify the base material, but this is normally not what I want because I want to create like a different color breakup and then a different, an even different roughness breakup. So in my case, this works fine for me, but you can also just merge the two and make it work as in one way. So when you change this, the styling or whatever you do with the color texture is also gonna reflect the same into the roughness texture. See? And we can of course increase the tiling as well, make it different. There you go. That is pretty much how it works, and it does work. So that's fantastic. So we added and yet another little piece to the puzzle. Now this can start to be confusing real fast, even with the the proper category. So another thing that you can do is to actually give into the master material, click on one thing, on one of the variables, sorry, and just give it a priority. Now I'm not gonna do this now, but you can do it however you want. For example, maybe you want to put in the let's say the texture first, like the textures first, like and group them up into one batch. Then you want to put the color properties, roughness properties, metallic properties, and whatnot. You can do that. Like for example, whatever's a color property, you give it 1. Whatever is a metallic property, you give it 2. But ideally, you want to give it like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, blah 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 blah. For example, how many can you have, right? It's not too many. So for example, the first 10 are gonna be textures. Then you start from 20, and that's color. And then from 30, it's metallic. From 40 is roughness, and so on and so forth. So that they're all nicely stacked, and you're gonna want to do the same for the others as well. Little piece of advice: if you do this before, so you do this when you create the first big node here. So you create this, you pack it up. Then when you duplicate it, it's gonna translate also into these. So if let's say you gave this one 32, you will also find 32 into this one, and it corresponds to the other one. But then when you change the group properties, it's gonna basically appear in exactly the same spot, but in the other properties tab. So it helps you with organizing things a bit faster. The problem with this is that you would have to think about it beforehand, and it's not always possible because sometimes you're doing trying and error on materials. You don't know how they're gonna turn out in the end, so you're not even sure how many things you're gonna output there. It's a lot to think about when you're not even sure how the material is gonna work yet. So it's a little bit complicated in my opinion, but well, I always do it after because organization comes later. Believe me, like you want to waste a lot of time into organizing things well because once you're done with this mat, you create a new project, you need this mat, you can always import it. You don't need to recreate it again. So there you go. That's why you want to do things good and clear the first time you do them. Now, moving on to normal nodes, right? For normals, it's gonna be really really straightforward. We don't need anything too fancy. First things first, as always, we're gonna have to grab our vertex colors and copy paste them. Okay, and then what we need to do, pretty much just grab a again param 2D. Oh, shit. Texture. There you go. Texture sample parameter 2D. Rename this into M1 normal texture. What do we want with this? So, an important thing is going to be contrast as always and tiling. That's about it, really. We don't need anything else for the normal textures. You're just going to import a normal that you want to use. Normally, what I import is something that is going to make the texture a little bit bumpy. Uh, like some micro bumps, stuff like this. For example, for plastic or something very specific, like for like leather, stuff like this. Uh, I don't go too crazy with the normal map. It's remember, it's always like the background material for like the object that you're gonna be slapping trim sheets on. And remember, when you slap that trim or those decals on top, they will partially take the color of whatever is underneath. So mess around with it too much, stuff is gonna start to look weird. So what we do is that we simply do a multiply here, connect this into the red. Okay, perfect. And we just create a parameter. By the way, this one, once again, do not leave it to this. What you want to do is you want to look for a normal placeholder, something small. It's a 32 by 32. Oh, 2000. Jeez. Definitely not that. Placeholder normal. It's again 32. Maybe there's a 1 by 1. No? Nah. I'll just leave it to placeholder normal. This is fine. It's just a 32 by 32. Then we create another multiply. Again, press M and left click. And then we want to use the output of the rotators. Slap it in. And then we just create a simple tiling parameter. So we call this M1 texture. This one, yeah, we can actually make it simply call it texture tiling amount. How did I call this? No, it's micro variation of a tile. No, I'm gonna call M1 normal tiling amount. Good. And yeah, I need to convert this also into a parameter and call it M1 normal contrast. Now, contrast is not something I normally use much into the normal map. I just don't, honestly. The tiling amount, we can give it a default param of 1. That's it. That's really it. Like, we want to group all of these up into the M1 variables or properties. Then we grab everything. Actually, you know what? Just to be in line with what I told you before, let's organize this well. Because, like next thing I was going to do, I was going to group them up. Well, actually, I'll do it. I'll just do it right away. I'm gonna collapse this. N2, I think. Yeah, I think that's it. That's it. I can just work like this. Now I make a reroute node here. This is a bit. Okay. Um, collapse nodes. We call it M1 normal. The input is always rotation input, and the output pin, we call it simply M1 normal. Actually, just call it normal. Whatever. I don't need to change it later. Right. So where do we go from here? So as I was telling you, it's good practice to not to make it too cluttered, to give things a specific order, like even when they're like in that category that I showed you. So we have our categories, but I really want to have the color stuff separated from the other stuff. Okay. So way we can do this is by using that. They're pretty much grouped already, to be honest, but they might. Yeah, they are grouped. Metal. No, because see, glossy or opaque is above metal or not. That's not good. I'm thinking about how this might be smart to do it because I did this before, but I didn't really like how it turned out. We might want to have all of the textures together, to be fair. Mm. Yeah, I'm gonna have all of the textures together, and then I'm gonna have all of the all of the variables separated in increments. Right. So let's go into the M1 color logic, and I want to have this one is gonna be. Let's give it a sort priority of 1. So the color is always 1. Then, well, metallic is just really metallic or not, so we don't need it. But the roughness we have 1, so I'm gonna put this on 2. Head back. The normal, I'm gonna put this on 3. Now, if I apply and save, you will see that in M1, scroll back up, right? So M1 has the textures like that, and I'm missing the normal. Where the hell is my normal? Ah, it's not anywhere because it's not plugged. So now it is. If I apply it, there you go. We also have the normal placeholder. So see now all of these selectable actual textures are all appearing on top, and I am okay with that. But then from here on out, I want to separate them with the with like with what they do. So for example, in the M1 logic, I might want to have the, of course, the color takes priority. So from here on out, we're gonna start from 10. Yeah, so this one is gonna be 10 because I want this to appear first because it's the M1 color. Then the variation I want it to appear right after, so I'm gonna put it on 11. Now, if I already apply this, see, they're really close to each other now. Like they're right next to each other. Next up, I want to have the what? Alpha contrast? No, first I want to have the on or off. So this is gonna be a 12, and then the alpha contrast is gonna be a 13. Now if I apply, there you go. Yes, color alpha on or off, and this is gonna be the alpha contrast. Perfect. Then we want them metallic or not, which is gonna be, well, we use 10s for these. So for the metallic, we're gonna use 20s. So this is gonna be a 20. I write 10, of course. Perfect. So this is 20, so it's metallic or not. Fantastic. That's all I need. And then the glossiness now. Yeah, color. So it's glossy or opaque and micro variation alpha tile. Now this was messed up because what was this? Ah, yeah. There you go. Micro variation of the like color. Now, if I apply it, there you go. See, this one now it's here and it should be up there. So the alpha tiling, where do I want it? Probably right after the alpha on or off. Yeah, actually. So so alpha on or off was what? 12. This should be 13. And then this should be 14. Perfect. Now if I apply, yes, perfect. So we have M1 color variation tint, alpha on or off, variation alpha tile, and alpha contrast is last. Perfect. And we have metallic or not. Then we have if it's glossy or opaque. That's great. So we're gonna do pretty much the same as we did before. So this is gonna start from the 30s. So this is, I want it to 30. I want this to be 31 because it's the micro variation, right? So now if I hit OK, perfect, glossy or opaque, and this is the micro variation. And then I want what? Yeah, the variation alpha on or off, I guess. 32, fine, it's already set. Why is it down there though? Ah, yeah, because the other ones are also all of them 32. So we reached the number where everything is gonna go under now. Then what do we want? Alpha contrast. And alpha tile, I guess. No. What did I do before? Yes, I did. So it was color alpha on or off, variation alpha tile, and then contrast. So tile will go before contrast. So we have so 30, 31, 32. This is going to be 33. This is going to be 34. Okay, great. I'll apply it. Now they're going to reshuffle, but the normal is going to stay there because it's above. This one, we can start with, well, this one's already set. It's really just two of them, so I guess the cool. And we are done. Now everything is sorted properly and it's looking good. Everything is nicely stacked and grouped together. And they all look the same throughout all four materials. So big. Fantastic. So we can reduce this and we can comment this. Maybe I can include perhaps a little reroute node as well. Why not? So we can comment this and we can call it normal nodes. And I'll make it blue. Okay, great. connected it. Nice. So this concludes the material creation. It was pretty straightforward. If you want, we can quickly test the normal. Jeez, what in the hell is going on here? Did I connect it to the emissive? I did, didn't I? No, I. What? I did not. Huh. There's some weird shenanigans going on. It's probably the normal. Yeah, it's definitely the normal map that is causing these weird shenanigans here. Well, just to make sure, I'm gonna apply. And it's gone. So it was indeed the normal map. So I need to use another normal map because that one is creating some weird VT. Yeah. Perhaps. Yeah, can't really tell. So that's the one thing. Instead of using that output, I'm gonna use this output. And one output for all of them. Yeah, I still screwed. Right. So why is it so messed up? Check what I was using in my other project. Ah, base flat and norm, of course. Base flat and normal. There you go. Now this should work. Doesn't work. I'm like, bro, what? What is going on? Uh, this right? Yeah, it is. Base flat and norm. Oh, hold on. Did I accidentally? No, it is. So why? This is really odd. Yeah, it's like creating these artifacts is super strange. Even changing it doesn't seem to do much. Hmm. I'll get back to you in a sec. Yes, obviously, I'm an idiot because I'm doing this while I am extremely sleep deprived. And I didn't realize that I did not set the default normal contrast, which was at 0. And that's what was creating that weird artifact thingy. So make sure you have it on 1. I'm gonna have to modify it also for the others, but it's as simple as that. Just bring this to 1. Also, the base texture, just use the base flat and normal map. This one that is a 1 by 1. Right, now we can reconnect it. Of course, if I close this one though. Oh my god, Mr. Spaghetto, what are you doing? Okay, great. So now we have this extremely convoluted material. Just kidding, it's not that complicated. But it is somewhat intricate. Like you need to really understand what is going on. But since I explained everything as we went through it, like you understand it's not too bad. So to recap, real quick. So we have the main color, variation tint. They're driven by the alpha. Okay, so everything is ending up into the lerp, and this is driving the difference. So without this, we wouldn't be able to actually shift in between these two, depending on a texture. So we need the actual texture to drive, the variation color. And without that texture, it would just be either this or a mix between the two. So it would end up a darker red the more you bring into the black until it fades to complete black. Now the same concept is gonna work for roughness, right? So this texture is gonna drive the roughness difference between these two. And for the normal map, it's way more straightforward. As you know, like we already said, there's just the tiling amount and the contrast. That's all we need. And everything is driven by the rotation logic. And for the metal, that's it. We just need to understand if it's metallic or not. And everything runs through our lovely vertex colors, which will basically tell Unreal which material it is, depending on what we painted in Blender. Now, one last little thing. If you remember when we brought in our lovely asset, find it again. Absolutely fantastic asset. When we brought it in, it always spawns in halfway into the ground. Now this is something that I'm pretty sure in Unreal 5.4 you can fix directly in Unreal. There was like a new thing for origins that they made. Now we're gonna be looking into this because I also have to look into it 1 second myself because I've never done it before. But you can avoid that headache altogether if you do this correctly in guess what, in Blender, right? For instance, I actually don't like how it is like horizontal. I want it vertical, maybe. So I'm gonna turn it to the y-axis, 90 degrees, and I am gonna select this face, SC, cursor to active, get out to object mode, and select. No, sorry, not selection. Origin to 3D cursor. There you go. Now our origin is down here. Now all we need to do is hit N, go back here, and export to Unreal Engine 4. And now let's re-import it, and ta-da! Now it's vertical. And as you can see, the origin point is at the bottom. So if we hit end, it's gonna drop to the ground. And if we delete it and bring it a new one, look, perfect. One last thing before we wrap this material shenanigan thing up. If you want to have two different materials, well, you can simply go into the material instance and no, actually, you want to go into the master material, create another instance, right? And then apply it to this one. But there is another way. So let's say you have a material that you like. For example, I don't know, let's say I like this, fine, right? I want to keep it for this one as well. But I want to change the micro variation of this. Instead of blue, I want it red. Now, if you go duplicate the master material, you're gonna have to set everything up again so that all of the other stuff is similar to what you did for this material. Now, I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to create a material instance of this material so that it all stays the same and it derives everything from this material. So this is going to be a material instance of a material instance, right? So the way we can call it, material 1, variation 1. It's going to be the variation. And we can just hit this, base 1, var 1. So now if we open this up, as you can see, it's deriving all of the things from the quote unquote master material, which is really the first material instance we made. So if the only thing I want to change, let's say, I don't know why you would want to do this, but the only thing you want to change is the variation tint of the fourth, and make it red. I save it, I go back and see this is all the same, they look still identical, and now this is red. Let's say I open the first one and I change yeah, go into M1, change the color to blue, and I hit OK. See, this one will change as well. even though it's a different material. Well, it's technically the same, but it's an instance of this one. So if I change this color, that one is gonna mirror it as well once I apply it. If I don't want that, I'm gonna have to open this material. Jeez, what did I do? I'm gonna have to open this material. Let's just open it in here so that it's easier. And I'm gonna have to, yeah, that's the 4. Where is it? So this is M1, isn't it? Yes, M1 color, and I have to, you know, click it in order to edit it and just change it. So now I have another color. Okay. So you have to keep this in mind. You do this when you want to change like a few things, like some major stuff. But let's say you like, for example, the micro variations you made for the material and stuff. You just want to create a similar one with different colors. You can do this. You don't need to recreate everything from scratch, redoing like putting in all of the textures, fixing up, the tiling amount and blah 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 blah. You don't need to do that. You can just duplicate it. I mean, sorry, not duplicate it, instance it, create a variation of the instance, and you're good. Okay? So don't need to go crazy with all that stuff. Okay, I think unless I forgot something, I'm gonna put it into the edit afterwards. But that pretty much wraps up uh, all we need to know and to do about this specific material that we're gonna be using everywhere.